After indirect negotiations hit deadlock on Monday. Hello, I'm Sahil Rahman and you're watching Al Jazeera, live from our headquarters here in Doha. Also coming up, the British Supreme Court is expected to rule on whether MPs have the power to trigger the Brexit process. Also one step closer to confirming Donald Trump's pick for US top diplomat. Rex Tillerson is narrowly approved by a Senate committee. And rights organisations warn widows in Zimbabwe are struggling to keep their homes from being stolen by relatives. Syria's opposition delegation says it has no plans to sign a communique at talks in Kazakhstan. The main players involved in the Syrian conflict are meeting in the capital, Astana, for a second day. Discussions ended on Monday after the government and opposition traded accusations. They didn't meet face to face. The talks, backed by Russia and Turkey, aim to strengthen a truce which has been largely holding since December. Mohammed Jamjoon has the latest from the capital.
It was a rocky start in Astana for the Syria talks. Before they began, diplomats were relatively certain delegations from the Syrian government and the Syrian opposition would be negotiating face to face. But that proved far too optimistic in the capital of Kazakhstan. Rebel leaders are in Astana, but were unsure if they'd attend.
This whole event has two basic goals, actually, is the confirmation and solidification of the ceasefire, that agreement that was signed on the 30th of December last year. The guarantees both Russia and Turkey. This station would just focus on this particular thing and confirm it. Another dimension to these talks would be the human dimension.
By the time they set out for the talks, they decided not to hold direct discussions with Syrian government negotiators. While the talks did officially begin, albeit later than expected, recriminations remained. A lack of trust between Syrian delegations means Russian and Turkish diplomats will be acting as mediators. Syria's government blamed the opposition for the chaos and confusion.
Some of the participants, and namely speaking the delegation of the terrorist armed groups, gave its own interpretation or misinterpretation of these agreements and went beyond the framework of these agreements. And that created a problem for all the participants, because the delegation of the armed terrorist groups did not respect the provisions of the agreement on the basis of which we came to Astana.
Both sides say they are committed first and foremost to ensuring the ceasefire in Syria is cemented.
Well, Mohammed Jamjoon joins me now from the capital, Astana. And we saw on Monday this war of words which seemed to dominate proceedings for certainly 24 hours. How clear are the rebel groups in their agenda of what they want to discuss on day two?
Well, Sohail, what we've heard in the last hour from the rebels that are involved in the talks is that they do not plan to sign any final communique that may be released either later today or tomorrow if the talks are extended. There is some talk in the last couple of hours as well that possibly the talks might be extended into a third day, although that is far from certain at this hour. Also, I should mention that we are waiting, hopefully in the next 5-10 minutes, to hear if the head of the Syrian government delegation, Mr. Bashar al-Jafari, is going to be giving a statement to the press at the Rixos Hotel, which is the site of those talks. The rebels have been consistent in saying that what they want to do first and foremost is to have a mechanism in place for the continuation of the cessation of hostilities. We heard a short while ago from Osama Abu Zaid. He's one of the spokespeople for the opposition delegation. Here's what he told us.
There are signals and proof of violations of the truce, which Russia is speaking of. The ongoing violations of the ceasefire means that the Assad regime has not yet implemented the ceasefire. The issue is not up for discussion. We signed to an agreement and it must be implemented. I think the Russians have made promises and their promises have been turned to threats. But what we await is more than threats. We wait for actions to be taken. We are waiting for actions, and I think the coming hours are decisive.
Mohammed, Stefan de Mistura is the UN envoy who hosts the talks in Geneva that are normally led by the UN. He's in Astana. He's had his work cut out for him, certainly overnight, in some very intense negotiations. What has he been up to and what is he about to say?
Well, Suhail, it's fascinating to see how Mr. de Mistura's role has been expanded. If you'll remember, before the talks, we knew he had been invited, but it wasn't clear what his role was going to be. Even the day before the talks started, it wasn't completely clear if he was just going to be an observer or was going to be mediating in some capacity. But today, clearly, he is mediating. He had, as you mentioned, meetings late into the night, up until around 2:30 a.m. With the Syrian rebels. And today, he's been involved in meetings all day. He has said to us in the last few hours that he expects there might be a deal that's completed in the next few hours. Here's more of what he told us just a short time ago.
We are working hard for a declaration that can reassure that the process of the actual cessation of hostilities becomes more solid. And that's what we are working on. Every moment is important because until the last moment before the final declaration comes out, there are very intense discussions because this is not about a paper, it's about cessation of hostilities, which means saving lives.
You know, Suhail, it was just yesterday that it was announced that the Syrian rebels and the Syrian government, their delegations here, would not be negotiating face-to-face. And once that announcement was made, the press was told that the Russians and the Turks would be acting as the mediators between both groups. But clearly, it seems as though Stefan de Mistura has taken the lead, that he is the chief negotiator here at these talks, something that diplomats are telling us bodes well for these talks, paving the way for those peace talks that are going to be happening in early February in Geneva.
Well, for the moment, Mohammed, of course, we'll leave it there, but come back to you through the day as those talks develop. Now, Marwan Karbalan is an associate analyst at the Doha Institute and joins me now here in studio. Nice to have you with us. It seems that the rebel groups don't trust anything that's on paper and don't feel that it's worth the paper that it's written on. So a communique means nothing to them, but it means a lot, certainly, to Russia and Turkey.
Indeed, because past experience for the opposition actually doesn't seem very much encouraging, in the sense that last year we had two ceasefires before this last one. The first one was in February 27, and it was agreed between President Putin and former US President Barack Obama, and that actually collapsed a few weeks after it was agreed upon. The second ceasefire was reached between Sergei Lavrov, Foreign Minister of the Russian Federation, and John Kerry, US Secretary of State, and it also collapsed on the 7th date of the ceasefire. So now we have a third ceasefire, but indeed, I mean, this one is a bit different from the previous one because we have the major backers of the warring parties present at this particular talks. But still, the opposition is having a reservation about, especially about the role of Iran and the role of the Iranian-backed militias, because these are the main violators of the talks. And it wanted very much to be part of the mechanism to monitor the ceasefire. It wanted also to be seen as part of the problem rather than being part of the solution, rather than being part of the problem. I think the opposition does not see the Iranian role that way.